Hi, this is Jason from Effective Dashboards, helping maintenance and reliability professionals get the most out of Power BI. So welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be talking about applying conditional formatting to measures that are embedded in a text box. So here's an example here where I've got a text box and I've embedded this measure here, which is a count of the current number of work orders. So this value here. Now I want to apply some conditional formatting to this value here so that it's red if it's above the target of 5 and it's green if it's below the target of 5. So I'm going to talk you through the steps I've taken to achieve that effect. Okay, so let's get started. So let's just have a quick look at the data model here and the data. So we have got a list of a simple table with a date at the start of the month and the count of the work orders. We've got the hours in there as well, but we're not going to use that just now. So that's the data model, really straightforward, and I've created a measure here, which is really just a simple sum of this column here, which is the work order backlog count. So the number of work orders at the end of the month that's in backlog, and I've created this line graph here that shows that exact measure. Now, in the actual text box, we want to just show the latest value, okay? We don't want to pull in this work order measure here because when it's a text box, it's basically going to count up all the work orders that are for each month this year. And that's not what we need. We just need the latest value here. So I've gone and created this measure here, which is really straightforward. This is a really handy function. It's last non-blank value, and if you just look at the parameters, there's a column name. So this is going to be looking through the dates table date. So it's going to go through that dates table date, which we know is a dates table has a date for every single day. And it's going to find the latest value, which is non-blank, where there is something returned for backlog work. So it's going to return this value here of 7 because that's the latest value in the date table which has been evaluated for this measure, which returns a non-blank value. Okay, so that is the setup here. So let's add in a text box. Okay, so I've pasted that value in here now. I'm just going to extend this a little bit so we can see all the text. There we go. So there are currently, and then we're going to embed here the latest number of work orders in backlog. This is over or under, so that needs to be dynamic as well. The 2022 backlog reduction target, which is less than, and then we need a threshold value here, work orders. So let's go and start thinking about what we need to put in for this first measure here, which is the latest number of work orders. So we could just pull in the latest number of work orders here. So that would give us that value there. However, once we've got that value into the text box, there is actually no way of changing the conditional formatting of that value. Now we can set that value there. So let's just pretend that that was 7. We can set that value there to be red, or we can set it to be green. However, there is no conditional formatting like you would normally see here, that little FX button. There is none of that here that lets us set that value based on a measure. So the approach we're going to take here is we're actually going to create two measures and we're going to put them side by side. So the first measure is going to show a value, the number of work orders in backlog, if it's over the threshold value. If it's under the threshold value, it's going to return a blank. Now the second measure we're going to create is going to show a blank if it's above the threshold, but show the number of work orders if it's below the threshold. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to show either one or the other. Now if we've got two measures that are embedded in the text box, we can apply a red to the measure that shows only the values if it's over the threshold, and we can apply the green color if it is a measure that only shows the values if it's below the threshold. And that's pretty much the kind of idea here. So let's start off by creating a measure that shows the value if it's above the threshold, otherwise it shows a blank. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to define the threshold. So I've put that as a measure because then we can change it in one central place and we can refer to that in our calculations with the other measures when we're comparing the current backlog against the actual threshold. So this is going to be 5 in here. And then we're going to go and create this one here, which is the first of the two measures. And this one is only going to show a value if the the backlog count is above the threshold. Okay, so the logic's really straightforward. We first of all define a variable that's going to return this backlog work order's latest value. Then we're going to use this switch statement to return whichever one is true. Now there is only one of these one argument there, and the latest, if the latest backlog, which is this one here, is greater than the backlog work order threshold, which we've defined as being 5, then return the latest backlog. Otherwise, just return the default for the switch statement, which is going to be a blank value. Okay, so that's the first one. Now the second one we're going to create is going to be the opposite of this. Okay, so this one here is the backlog latest equal to or under target. So again, we're just going to define the backlog latest value, and instead the switch statement here is going to return, are going to check to see if the latest backlog is less than the backlog threshold or less than or equal to the backlog threshold. If it is, it's going to return that value. Otherwise, it's going to return a blank. So let's see what these look like side by side. Okay, so I've pulled these into a table here, and we can see this is returning 7 and this is returning a blank. Now the next thing we need to do is just to change this value here to make sure that if it is below the threshold, it's the opposite and we get a value here and a blank there. So I'm going to go into data and I'm going to change this to be 4, and then I'm going to refresh the data set. Okay, so I've refreshed that and we can see here that this is 4 and this is blank. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to embed these into this text box. So I'm going to start with the number of work orders, and we're going to go and click on this value here. And in here we're going to actually type in the name of the measure. So we'll start off with the backlog work orders latest value over target. And we can see it's going to start to suggest different measures, and here it is here. And we can see that there's no value here because there's no value over target. It's 4, it's under the target, so it's returning a blank. Now for the internal name of it, the value here, your name, I'm just going to copy and paste the name of the measure. Okay, and we're going to stick that into here. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go and right next to it, we're going to add in the next one, which is equal to or under the target. Okay, so we've typed that in and we can see it's returning a 4. Let's just give it a name. And in here we can see that's 4. So the next thing is that we need to go and apply some conditional formatting, or actually just a color, to each one of these. Now this is going to return a blank. Now on the here we can see there's a placeholder there, but when this is published to the Power BI service, that will not be a space, it will be a blank. So it's going to give us the illusion that we've got some conditional formatting, because it's either going to display one of the measures or the other measure. Now this is where we change the color of each one of them. So this one here is going to be green. And this one here is going to be red. Okay, so we can see that that has been done, and we just need to take away the little space in between them. And I'm going to publish this up to the Power BI service so you can see exactly what I've done there. So here's a text box here. There are currently 4 conditionally formatted green work orders in backlog. So next we're going to go and actually address the over, under and the threshold. So this over, under needs to generate a word over, or if the value is over the threshold, or under if the value is under the threshold. And the logic here again is very straightforward. We're going to use a switch statement, and it's going to check the latest value for the backlog, which is this value here at the end of the graph. And if it's over the threshold, then we're going to return the word over. And likewise, we're going to do exactly the same, but if it's under or equal to the backlog threshold, then we're going to call it under. So all we need to do is embed these into this section here. So we can see this is returning a blank because it's actually currently under, it's sitting at 4, it's under the threshold, so it's not going to return, it's going to return a blank. And then let's put in the one for over, so the one for under, here it is here, equal under text, and we can see that this has returned that text that says under. Okay, so let's add some conditional formatting here. That's going to be red if it's over, and that's going to be green if it is under. And then we're going to add in the threshold value. Now we can see it's returning 5 there, and we can see the 5 has been embedded in here. So the final thing is, let's add a bit of bold to all of these. Okay, and we'll tidy this up, and I'm going to publish this up to the Power BI service so we can see the end result. Okay, so here we have the final result here. There are currently 4 work orders in backlog. This is under the 2022 backlog reduction target, which is less than 5 work orders. And if we change it to be over the threshold, we can see that it's exactly the same. We've got the 7 and the over, and they have been conditionally formatted to be red. So hopefully you have got some good ideas about how you can use conditional formatting, or you can mimic conditional formatting within these text boxes. And if you really found this video useful, then it's always appreciated if you could give it a thumbs up and a like. That helps out a lot. And if you want to keep up to date with the latest videos, I tend to release one every week, then hit the subscribe button and you'll be kept up to date whenever I publish a new video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next video.